Hi students, let's talk about IELTS Task 1 Academic Writing Vocabulary Tips. IELTS Academic Writing Task 1 question requires you to use several vocabularies to present the data given in a pie, bar, line, mixed graph, or to describe a process or a flowchart. Being able to use appropriate vocabularies, presenting the main trend, comparing and contrasting data, and presenting the logical flow of the graph ensure a high band score in your academic IELTS Writing Task 1. So let's take a look at the task assessment. To demonstrate that you have a great lexical resource, you need to use correct synonyms in your writing, use a range of vocabulary, do not repeat words and phrases from the exam question unless there is no alternative, use less common vocabulary, do not use the same word more than once or twice, and use precise and accurate words in a sentence. It is advisable that you learn synonyms and use them accurately in your writing in order to give an impression that you can use a good range of vocabulary. Moving on to the introduction vocabulary. This is the first sentence, and there are few examples on how we can begin the first sentence of the first paragraph of introduction of task 1. So I can start with the given or the supplied or the presented, and then I move on to whatever my graph is, if it's a diagram or a table, illustration, graph, chart, flow chart, and then I'll move on to the verb. So generally we use the present tense, which is shows or represents, depicts, enumerates, illustrates, and then I'll talk about what really the graph is. So describing it a little more, I can say the differences or the changes, the comparison or the amount or information. So I want you to all take a look at this carefully, and then I'm going to move on to the examples. All right. So now how we can use these in the examples. There are a few examples I have written for you. The diagram shows employment rates among adults in 4 European countries from 1925 to 1985, or the given pie charts represent the proportion of male and female employees in 6 broad categories, dividing into manual and non-manual occupations in Australia between 2010 and 2015. So I'm giving a broad outline of what the whole graph is all about. The chart gives information about consumer expenditures on 6 products in 4 countries. The bar graph and the table data depict the water consumption in different sectors in 5 regions. So now let's take a look at the overview vocabulary. Now overview is a summary of the whole task 1. And this is the second paragraph. So most of these days we do the summarize. We summarize it in the second paragraph. Now here I can begin my second paragraph like in general or in common or generally speaking, overall, as is observed, as a general trend, as can be seen, as an overall trend, as is presented, at the first glance, it is clear, or at the onset, and I can use it into certain examples In general, the employment opportunities increased till 1970 and then declined throughout the next decade. As is observed, the figures for imprisonment in the 5 mentioned countries show no overall pattern, rather shows the considerable fluctuations from country to country. Or generally speaking, citizens in the USA had a far better life standard than that of remaining countries. As can be seen or as can be observed, the highest number of passengers used the London Underground station at 8 a.m. in the morning and at 6 p.m. in the evening. So this is how I can wrap up and show the crux in the overview. Now moving on to the third and the fourth paragraph, which is my main body paragraph. Now, as I earlier mentioned in my previous video when I described in details about the vocabulary for the task 1, I mentioned that in the third and the fourth paragraph, I can basically divide my years and put it into different categories. Now, how I can begin the third paragraph is, again, you can take a look at few of these examples as is presented in the diagram, or as can be seen, categorically speaking, the table data clearly shows. Getting back to the details, this is how I can start my third paragraph. And then I am going to show the comparisons of different years with different countries. So let's take a look at now showing the changes. Now we need to be very specific in using different vocabulary. We cannot use the same words like increase or decrease again and again. So all the time I should be using a different set of vocabulary. I should be using synonyms to explain my trends, because I don't want to show the examiner that my answer is boring. Now here, if you see on the left side, this is the first one is increase. And rather than using the word increase, I can use rise, go up, uplift, climb, upsurge, shot up, improve, skyrocket, soar, surge. Or if I'm using it as a noun, I can say an increase or an upward trend, a growth, an improvement. Moving on to the decrease, again I have different synonyms like fall, decline, plummet, plunge, drop, reduce, collapse, deteriorate, and similarly goes for the nouns, just using an article. Then steadiness, if there is no change at all, then I can say level out or remain constant, remain steady, or plateau, remain static. And moving on to the gradual decrease, I can show an upward trend. Or if it's a gradual decrease, I can show a downward tendency. And if it's a standability or flat, then I can say remain consistent or stabilize, no change. Now let's talk about certain examples. The overall sale of the company increased by 20% at the end of the year, or the expenditure of the office remained constant for the last 6 months, but the profit rose by almost 25%. There was a 15% drop in the ratio of student enrollment in this university, or the population of the country remained almost the same as it was 2 years ago. Now, how we can represent the changes. So here, the types of changes, so we can categorize it in adverb and adjective form. Now let's take a look at the first point, which is rapid change. So if it's a rapid, quick change, I can use the word dramatically or rapidly, speedily, significantly, or if I'm using it as an adjective, I can just remove the ly. I can say dramatic or sharp and swift, substantial. And on the other hand, if it's a moderate change, I can say moderately or sequentially if it's an adverb, or if it's an adjective, I can say gradual, progressive. If it's a steady change, I can say steadily, or I can use the word ceaselessly or ceaseless in adjective form. And if it's a very slight change, not much, so I can say slightly or slowly, tediously, mildly, or I can say mild or tedious in the adjective form. So now what our examples are: the economic inflation of the country increased sharply by 20% in 2008. There was a sharp drop in the industrial production in the year 2009. The demand for new houses dramatically increased in 2002. The population of the country dramatically increased or rose in the last decade. So how can we represent frequent changes? So if it's changes, ups and downs, so I can use the word fluctuate, wave, oscillate, vacillate, palpitate. And if I'm using it in the nouns, I can use add s to it. So same words. So let's take a look at a few examples. The price of the goods fluctuated during the first 3 months of 2017. The graph shows the oscillations of the price from 1998 to 2002. The passenger number in the station oscillates throughout the day, and in the morning and evening it remains busy. So let's talk about connectors, what connectors are. Connectors are linking words or transition words and act as conjunctions. They are the easiest and the most effective ways to connect ideas in a sentence. Using linking words in writing makes it more appealing. Connectors help in improving the quality of a sentence structure while creating complex sentences. Also, it helps connect one thought to the other, thus giving the conversation a logical sequence. Let's take a look at a few of the examples here. So I can use the connectors however or howbeit to embark with or to begin with, in the first place, in the second place, next, then, or finally, firstly, secondly, thirdly, lastly, moreover, or I can say by the same token, furthermore, or what is more, or additionally, to summarize, to sum up, in addition to that, likewise or similarly, not only, but also, although with a yet combination. Whereas, while or whilst, neither or nor, either or, on one hand, on the other hand, consequently, eventually, subsequently, in the meanwhile, thereafter, initially or gradually, simultaneously, hence, henceforth, thence, therefore, thus, owing to the fact that, besides, in spite of, despite the fact that. So I hope these connectors are good enough to help you moving from one point to the other. So thank you for watching my video. Keep watching more IELTS writing tips videos and don't forget to subscribe to my channel.